Jesus' sinless life and miraculous life is evidence of his deity. Simply living a sinless life, as difficult as that would be, would not necessarily prove someone is God. However, if someone both claims to be God and offers a sinless life as evidence, that is an entirely different matter. All men are sinners. God knows it, and so do we. If a man lives an impeccable life and offers as the truth about himself that he is God incarnate, we must at least take his claim seriously. There are some who dare to claim perfection, but few take these claims seriously, least of all those who know them best. With Jesus it is quite different. Those who knew him best thought the most highly of him, and outsiders cast unsubstantiated allegations at him. "We are not born of fornication, as you were," John 8:41, or "He is leading people astray." Some even dared to say, "He's a demon and is mad." At his trial, a false accusation brought forth that Jesus had said he would destroy the temple, yet not even so did their testimony agree. In verse 59. Pilate's verdict as to Jesus' alleged crime has been the verdict of history as to his character. When he says, "I find no crime in this man." The soldier at the cross exclaimed, "Certainly this man was innocent." And the dying thief, having earlier described Christ, came to see that this man has done nothing wrong, and asked for a place in Jesus' kingdom. The most significant testimony as to any man's character comes from those closest to him. From the lips of Jesus' most intimate friends and disciples who lived with him for several years at close range came glowing testimonies. Peter called Christ a lamb without blemish or spot, and added, "No guile was found in his lips." Jesus called him Jesus Christ the righteous. The Apostle Paul adds to his testimony the unanimously expressed belief of the first Christians that Jesus knew no sin. And the writer of the Hebrews clearly affirmed that Jesus was tempted like a man, yet without sinning. Jesus himself challenged his accusers, saying, "Which of you convicts me of sin?" Neither they nor anyone else has successfully pinned a sin on the remarkable and impeccable character of Jesus. This being the case, it is reasonable to conclude that Jesus really was he who claimed to be, for his sinlessness would both testify to the truthfulness of his testimony and serve as a supporting evidence for it. What mere man can live a consistently sinless life when viewed at such close range? Jesus' life was not only sinless, but it was miraculous from the beginning. He was born of a virgin. He turned water into wine, walked on water, multiplied bread, opened the eyes of the blind, made the lame walk, cast out demons, healed the multitudes of all kinds of sickness, and even raised the dead to life again on several occasions. When asked whether he was the Messiah, he offered his miracles as evidence, saying, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed of the deaf, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up." Miracles of these kind were accepted by the Jews of Jesus' day as evident sign of the divine favor of the person performing them. And the special outpouring of the messianic miracles was proof that the performer was the Messiah. Even the Jews who knew Jesus had healed the blind man asked, How can a man who is a sinner do such signs?" The ruler Nicodemus stated the Jewish position well when he acknowledged to Jesus, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, for no one can do the signs that you do unless God is with him." To a first-century monotheistic Jew, miracles such as Christ performed were an obvious indication of divine approval. But in Christ's case, divine approval is an evidence of Christ's deity, just as the voice from heaven at Jesus' baptism pronounced him to be God's unique Son. So the outpouring of messianic miracles, coupled with the claims of Christ to be Jehovah, Messiah, is unmistakable evidence of his true deity. An act of God verifies the message of God given to the one performing the act. And in Christ's case, the message was, I am God. Here are the acts of God to prove it. All the scriptures are here on the screen so you can verify it, or get the book, Christian Apologetics by Norman Geisler. Now let's look at Jesus' resurrection as evidence of his deity. There is a third miracle or act of God confirming Christ's claim to be deity. It is his resurrection from the dead. This is truly the grand miracle, the greatest of them all. The fact that both the Old Testament and Jesus predicted in advance that he would rise from the dead makes the miracle even that much stronger. Since we have already given the evidence for the reliability of the New Testament, eyewitnesses to the events recorded therein, it will be necessary here to examine only the testimony itself. Both Old Testament prophets and Jesus predicted the resurrection. A Jewish monotheist believed that only God can give life. The Egyptian magicians reduplicated Moses' wonders until Moses was used of God to turn dust into living gnats, at which miracle they exclaimed, "This is the finger of God." Only God can create life, and only God can bring men back to life, they believed. Hence, in this monotheistic context, the most convincing evidence of God is a resurrection from the dead. And what makes Jesus' resurrection even more amazing is that it was predicted in advance both in the Old Testament and by Jesus. There are two lines of Old Testament arguments from the resurrection. First, there are the passages such as Psalms 2 and 16 that are cited by the New Testament as applying to the resurrection of Christ. It was no doubt passages such as these Paul used in the Jewish synagogues as he argued with them from the Scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for Christ to suffer and rise from the dead. Second, the resurrection of Christ is taught by logical deduction from two Old Testament teachings. One, the Messiah will come and die, and two, the Messiah will have an enduring political reign from Jerusalem. The only way one of the same Messiah can accomplish the actual fulfillment of these two lines of prophecy is by a resurrection from the dead. Jesus died before he could ever begin to reign. Only a resurrection could make the royal prophecies realizable. On top of these Old Testament predictions of Christ's resurrection are those he made on several occasions himself. According to John, Jesus predicted his resurrection from his earliest ministry, saying, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again," in reference to his body. Even in the Synoptics, Jesus said as early as Matthew 12:40 that, "As Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." After Peter's confession, Jesus began to teach them, his disciples, that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Mark 8:31. Jesus repeated this same prediction again on the way to Jerusalem and the cross. Further, Jesus said he would rise himself from the dead. "I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again." John 10:18. Now, in view of the prediction of the resurrection, the event is given special confirming significance. Karl Popper argued that whatever a risky prediction is fulfilled, it counts as confirmation of the hypothesis which comes with it. If so, what could be a riskier prediction than a resurrection, and hence, what could have greater confirmational force than the resurrection of Christ? If a man would not accept the predicted resurrections as evidence of the truth claim, then he has an unfalsifiable bias against the truth.